Right. We're now live. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm gonna hang out with Ken here for a few minutes. Play some music while we wait. We always play some kind of music to welcome people while people filter in. Um, I know Ken's a big music fan. The Lollapalooza, like all 3 days a few weeks ago. So kind of under a lot of pressure, but I picked the Pets soundtrack because I felt like it was on brand for the Independence Pet Group where Ken is from. Ken, do you have pets being in the pet industry?
Yeah, I do. I have a 3-year-old dog. His name is Zeppelin. Speaking
Zeppelin.
of music.
Nice. Is he shaped like a Zeppelin? Is he like a bulldog of some kind that
No, he's a mixed breed. He's got like 23 different breeds in him, and we did the DNA test, and so he's not really a lot of anything. He's a little bit of everything.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't realize this is like a 23andMe for pets or something.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple different companies out there, but yeah, it's we got him from a shelter, and so we just wanted to know what he was, and that's why we did it.
Nice. That's so cool. Anybody that's on the stream, you guys have pets? Throw them in the comments. Let us know what you got. Are you a dog lover, cat lover, rabbit lover, reptile lover? Ken, do you guys do insurance for all types of pets, no matter what it is, or is it mainly dogs, cats?
Yeah, primarily dogs and cats. We do have a brand that does equine as well, but so horses. But that's it. It gets kind of difficult when you start getting into reptiles and smaller animals.
Yeah, I can imagine. Cool. Well, we're a few minutes in, so we will go ahead and get started. I'll turn off the pet soundtrack over here and get into chatting. All right. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining. Super excited today to have Ken here with us today. I'm Michael. I am the head of content at observe.ai. And we have today Ken, Director of Customer Experience at Independence Pet Group. Thanks for joining us, Ken. Would love for you to share a little bit about your role at Independence Pet Group, what you guys do, and what you're about.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Pleasure to be here today. So, as you said, I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Independence Pet Group. And I am overseeing a couple of our insurance brands that we have. Started out with FIGO Pet Insurance back in November of 2020, so during the pandemic, and really just have been working on putting together a technology stack that we can grow and bring to the other brands across the Independence Pet Group book of business.
Awesome. Yeah, super grateful to have you here for this topic, especially around elevating the contact center. I know we talked to a lot of our customers about this, and a lot of what we do has helped enable them to have a more strategic seat at the table. And I know a lot of the work that you have done in your career has really been to help the contact center be elevated in that way. And in our previous chats, you mentioned that the contact center at Independence Pet Group is really a critical business partner to the entire operation, thanks to all the work that you've done and to help to elevate this role. So we'll get into that and how you've done that and some of the tips and tricks and best practices that you have and continue to do there. But just before we get into that, this session will be recorded. So we'll post this up afterwards for everybody to have a link to. And if you have any questions for myself or Ken about the topic, feel free to add them in the comments or the chat, and we will answer them as we see them or at the end during a Q&A session. So don't be shy. I know this is a hot topic for folks, especially in contact center leadership. Please send the questions our way. So let's get started with the story, with your story, Ken. Would love to better understand, what is the current role of the contact center right now in Independence Pet Group? Tell us a little bit about where that stands and how it got there.
Yeah, so the role of the contact center at IPG, it's a leading part of our business. We know that this industry, that the pet insurance industry specifically, is growing very rapidly. There's still a lot of market share out there. And so our leaders understand that the way that we'll be able to differentiate ourselves from the competition is to ensure that we're providing the best customer experience possible, and that is in the contact center. So there's been some review about what kind of technologies we should have, but really that is the role of the contact center today, is really to differentiate us from other pet insurance providers. Pet insurance is regulated, and so there's very little we can do from a product standpoint, but there's a lot we can do from an experience standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great position to be in, right at the core of sort of the brand affinity for them, right? Providing an experience that is differentiated, I think, is huge. Has it always been like this? Has the contact center always been sort of like this leading part of the experience, or has that evolved over time thanks to the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, I would say at least with the pet insurance space, when I joined, the contact center wasn't really at the forefront, mostly because FIGO was still kind of a startup company, and so when you're talking about investment dollars, you're usually working on product and go-to-market strategy and things of that nature. So that was partly why I was brought on board, and so a lot of work went into improving our servicing to our insureds. And thankfully, we had a really good, solid team on staff already that they were doing a wonderful job, but it was just a matter of getting those metrics and things of that nature in place so that we could differentiate ourselves from the competition.
Kind of curious, you mentioned obviously looking at costs and expenses and investments, and at what point do you sort of roll that into a contact center to bring them to the forefront in a more strategic way? What were some of the, I guess, like, what was the tipping point for you guys? What were some of the things that you were maybe educating your company leadership on to get that investment and say, look, this is the right decision? I'm curious if there's anything there that our audience might be interested in.
Yeah, so I think that the company had already decided that they needed to build up on the contact center, and so hiring me was probably that first kind of like step in that direction. But then when I came in, it was a full overview of processes we had in place, what technologies we're using, and then providing the leadership team at the time with my suggestions based on experience, as well as based on my understanding of what's happening in the market, and rationale around why we should go in that direction. And part of that conversation was definitely around cost, right? Which way is going to be cost effective, but yet efficient and effective for what we're trying to achieve.
Nice. Curious, we talk about the contact center not only growing from an investment standpoint, but also evolving to a more strategic component of the business, and your role becoming more strategic as well. What were some of the ways that you've helped with this evolution, and what are some of the things that you continue to do to be that strategic partner to the business?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. I really do think probably the most important thing that a contact center leader can do is to be proactive. There's still a lot out there where contact centers are kind of second thought, and they're not at the forefront. Not everybody is as lucky as I am to be in the position I'm in today, but a lot of the reason that I've made it to where I have with this contact center is by being proactive and trying to bring information to other leaders within the organization and other departments to provide them some additional visibility into what the customers are experiencing and what the result of that happens to be.
is there like you talk about bringing information, being proactive. Is there a certain cadence or framework or structure or format that you like to bring to your partners, right? Because not everybody may necessarily be versed in all of the things contact center as you are. And so oftentimes, right, we have to sort of educate and communicate in a specific way. Do you have any examples of things that you found effective when you're sharing with your partners on the other side of the business?
Yeah. To that point, Michael, I don't assume that they know anything about a contact center.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about marketing. I don't know anything about technology, to an extent, right? We have a general idea of what's happening in those departments. But just like, I may not know exactly what I'm looking for. I know I need something from one of those teams. I would expect for them to kind of educate me and teach me what I need. So I take that same approach. When I find out about maybe a marketing campaign that's happening, we'll create moments in Observe so that we can kind of identify when calls are coming in about that. What does the customer think about those things? And then from there, I do have weekly cadences with some of the teams, and we cross share. Right, these are marketing, for example, will share maybe what ads are going out or what they're accomplishing, and then I can share the results that we saw from the last one that they did. So it is there's something to be said about having some conversations on a consistent basis, but you also have to be proactive in the sense that not everything is always planned, and so sometimes there might be a disruption in the market that your contact center will be they will be the first people that know because they'll hear it, right? And the customers will be calling in about whatever that disruption is. And so I don't wait for somebody from marketing to come to me and say, hey, something happened. What was it, right? We try to identify those things and bubble them up to other leaders in the organization so that we can have a quick response to it.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm hearing seems like it sort of boils down to you having visibility quickly and in real time into actually what's happening, and then being able to sort of consolidate that and bring that to the others to share kind of and that's sort of the value that you're bringing. It seems like to be that strategic partner. It's like, what's happening? Here's what it looks like. This is what we can do about that. Is that sort of a right assumption?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And again, it's up to the contact center leaders to really kind of be the leader in that space and make sure that they're bringing this information to other leaders throughout the business. It's really not the responsibility of other leaders to constantly be knocking at our door trying to figure out what's happening. So in order to show value, that proactive approach is critical.
I'm kind of curious, when you're able to bring this type of insight to other business partners, things that they may not have been able to have access to before, what's their reaction? Like, are they grateful? Are they impressed? Are they surprised? Or are they just kind of like, yeah, because this is real time, real world feedback that you are getting at scale, because you have the visibility. Just like, is this a new thing for them, or are they, how do they react?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's new for all of us, right? It's contact centers for a very long time. It was hard to get good insights as to what was going on. The percentage of calls that you were listening to was just a surface level of what you might be hearing. And then from there, if you thought something was going on, you have tick sheets or whatnot, so you're relying on your agents that are already doing 100 other things to now also remember if they get this very specific call that they need to put a tick mark on a tick sheet. So this is new for all of us, and I think that becoming an expert in the tools that we have will help to show that value to other key players in the business. When I have brought this information forward to folks, they're usually surprised that we have this kind of information. And I went from trying to force my way into some of those strategic meetings to now being proactively asked to join those meetings because they do see the value in the contact center.
I was gonna ask, how long did that evolution take to happen? Was it like, oh, you bring a few things and they're like, oh, we gotta get Ken in this meeting now, or does it take sort of like repeated exposure to what you're bringing to the table?
It definitely took exposure and some repetitiveness. Again, this is, technology in this space is fairly new for all of us, right? So it's a matter of uh, providing information and then hearing their feedback and really understanding what they're looking for and what they might need, and then creating something that's a little bit more applicable. Um, it Now it's definitely not something I have to ask for, but it took a solid year and a half of constantly providing that value for folks to really understand uh, that we can offer a lot more and we could help avoid maybe some pain points um, by providing some insights from previous marketing events or technology changes or things of that nature, or how to better prepare ourselves when maybe having to deliver some bad news to our insureds. So it has been helpful for those other departments to understand that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you're able to do when you're able to provide the visibility that you're able to collect at that level with others, and just better alignment across the board. Kind of curious, right? Like this is the dream state, or like one of the dream states maybe for the contact center, right? Being seen as strategic, being brought into the conversation. For a lot of folks, that's not necessarily the case. But kind of like, what's at stake? What happens if the contact center is not seen as a strategic partner, does not get brought into the conversation? Like, what are the challenges that happen if it's not an equal partner?
Yeah, the contact center used to be seen as, like I said, an afterthought. It seemed to be, we're gonna present different marketing things. We're gonna do different technology changes, and if there's issues, the contact center will help us correct it. And so, for lack of a better phrase, I guess we were kind of, contact center was kind of there to pick up the pieces and try to get things back on the rails. Um, it is so much easier for us to share kind of information in order to avoid that altogether. The customer experience today that customers are requiring of companies, it's way more than it ever has been. Customers expect perfection. And that customer experience really doesn't start in the contact center. It starts with any engagement we have with our customers. And so if any of those engagements are broke or fragmented or have issues, the contact center is really where that goes to be fixed. And so, yes, the contact center has a big portion or big part of the experience. But I joke about it all the time. I'm constantly trying to put myself out of a job. I don't want our customers to have to call us. I want our products and services to be perfect and always work and not have issues. And anybody that's in a leadership role in a contact center knows it is very, very far and few between that somebody's calling us up to say that we're doing a good job. And so the way I look at it is we got to find opportunities in our workflows or our technology or our product and provide insights around those back to those departments to try to fill in those gaps so that customers never even have to interact.
Love that. Yeah, it's so interesting that you said it really is about customer experience and having the best, just all around end to end experience with the brand, especially because customer expectations are changing, like you mentioned, and it's so easy to switch providers or switch companies or whatever it is these days. And so making sure that you're checking all the boxes at every step really does matter. I'm kind of curious, this is clearly, you're clearly passionate about the contact center and about sort of elevating the role of the contact center. We've had several conversations about it, and every single time, you're very outspoken about it, which I love. For you, why is it so important to you that the contact center be perceived this way, and not only for you personally, but also for the business as a whole?
Yeah, I am passionate about it. I've been in the contact center world for a very long time. But at the end of the day, it's my team that has to deal with uh, all of the things that break. And so there's nothing more frustrating for my agents than to constantly have the same repeated problem over and over and over again. And so it's important that the contact center is perceived as a stakeholder in the business, as somebody that can be a strategic partner, so that we can avoid going through that frustration. And if my agents are frustrated, my customers are certainly frustrated. And the customer, at the end of the day, they're the ones that are, paying the light bill. So it's important that we're listening to our agents, listening to our frontline employees, and then bringing that all back and fixing that. And since here at IPG, the contact center has really been given a seat at the table and in a serious manner. I think that it's helped us to really improve what our customers think about our products and services.
Yeah, that's super true. It's not only frustration for the agents and for the customers, but it's also efficiencies, right? If your agents are answering the same problems over and over and over again, something that could maybe be easily solved if there was just a little bit more communication or alignment, right? Like that would help in your overall KPIs and metrics as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I want my agents to, my agents are all licensed in property and casualty insurance, right? So they're licensed folks. Their sole purpose, that their job really is not to troubleshoot a login issue with our app, right? That's kind of a waste of the license. Their job is really to talk about our product and talk about how it works and sell our product to our customers. So that's the other thing, is when you have repetitive things that are not necessary, that could be fixed proactively coming into your environment, it takes away from what we should be focused on and trying to move to the business's overall targets.
Yeah. What's your process for identifying those maybe like repeat inefficiencies, and how do you maybe go about, again, working with your various stakeholders, business partners on working those out?
Yeah. So as I had mentioned earlier, that we do have cadence with marketing and technology, and whenever we see a marketing event go out, we will again create moments and try to track and see if folks are calling in about it, and if they are, then of course we can dig into insights. What was the customer sentiment around that call? How long was the call? How many of those calls ended in an escalation? How many of those calls required a callback or a repeat call? And so we can start to gather some of those insights to bring back and say, well, when you talk about the specific subject with, on a blog post or what have you, that creates a negative sentiment from our customers, at least the ones that call specifically around that. And so we just are able to provide that back to other key stakeholders. You need to make sure that you have tangible things to bring back. So whether that be a metric or a count of how many, or like I said, customer sentiment is a big one that folks really care about. And that goes a long way. That it goes much further than me saying we've had a lot of calls. It's better if you can quantify that.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, are there certain metrics that your business partners care about more? Like if you were to say, okay, this thing made this metric drop dramatically, all of a sudden their ears perk up, versus other ones are like, yeah, I don't really care about that. Like, do you find that there's a pattern there?
Yeah, I think that a couple of things. One, if our volume spikes for any items, then they also know that they're probably going to have, because I do have a seat at the table and I am a strategic partner, I have the ability to push back. And if there's something that's going to create a large amount of volume for our contact center, I will push back until I know that we're properly staffed, because we can't have degraded servicing because of one project that's happening, right? We've got to all align and all make sure that we're thinking forward about what kind of lift it's going to take. And that's happened in the past where we've had to push back and say, hey, listen, that's really going to create an additional need for 10 or 12 FTEs. And so we're going to have to wait until we have the right staffing for that. The other thing is, again, they want to know the customer sentiment. So that's an important thing to bring back. They want to know if the customers are happy. We also try to share that, like, hey, when you did this, our customers seem to really like it. Again, we don't get a lot of those calls, but sometimes we'll do something that will drum that up, and we do share those insights as well. But I think that the biggest thing is really, they don't want me to tell them that they can't do something in the future because of volume. So that they're very curious about what was the impact to the contact center, and how can we, the goal of that is to limit the impact on the next time. So usually if something is released from like a marketing perspective, the reason that customers are calling is because there was something that was left unclear. So we can then review those calls and kind of see what's in there and bring it back to the marketing team and say, listen, when you talk about this part of our product, be sure to supply them with this other education. And we even do that a lot with our quote and enrollment on our website. We look at our quote calls that come in and try to identify the most asked questions that we get from customers. And then we bring that back to our marketing team to say, our customers are still confused about these items, and this is how we're answering those questions. And then we work with them to update the website with different language or different examples, so that we can limit the amount of folks that have to call in during the quote process.
Yeah, oh, that's so good. I can see how like every little bit of data is just sort of like tightening up the machine just a little bit more. I know we're coming up on time here. So speaking of questions, for the folks that are on the stream right now, if you have any questions for us, please put them in now. We'll do a little Q&A after this a little bit. But here's my last question for you, Ken, which is, you're at this point, and I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but you're at this point where you are included in a lot of conversations. What does it look like now that you are the strategic partner? Like, what can other folks be kind of expecting once they've been able to show the value and then now they're included in these levels? Like, how do you know when you've gotten there?
Yeah, it's important that as you're working towards trying to be part of the strategic thought process, that you are building relationships with those key stakeholders. You also will find eventually that you're part of so many conversations that it becomes a little bit difficult to manage. The one thing that I think is so very important is, once you get into a place where you are a strategic partner, it is your responsibility to ensure that you're bringing value to the table all the time. The minute that you stop adding value to those other conversations, I wouldn't be surprised if you kind of get booted out, right? There's always so many people that want to be part of conversations that are decision-making conversations. And it's difficult to get into those, but once you're there, you got to make sure that you're working well with the other folks that are there, and that you're respecting, their position, where they're coming from their departments. And then you, like I said, you also have to just make sure that you're consistently adding that value, and you're coming to the table with a mindset of, how do we solution this? And that you're not always thinking just about you and your position in your team, but you're thinking more holistically about how this might impact others. Like I said earlier, there's been times we pushed back releases for things because we knew it would have a lot of volume that would be added that we wouldn't be able to service. But there's also been times where we haven't had really a choice and we had to take an opportunity, in which case I had to work with my team to make sure that we were ready. Both times we ended up being successful, but you don't always get what you want. And you got to understand that everybody is coming from a good place. We're all trying to get to the same end goal. And so how can you make it work, and how can you get folks to kind of understand and compromise?
Yeah, that's good. I know there's a quote from Tim Ferriss, the 4 Hour Workweek guy. He said, don't assume negative intent, right? Like always assume that everyone's trying to come and just do their job. And so I think that's a really good philosophy. I do have a question from Sky here around this actually, which is like, what do you think took so long for senior leadership to really recognize the value? Is it just a different mindset shift that they weren't used to? Was it just like exposure over time? Like what do you feel like took so long?
Yeah, I really do firmly believe that the technology that we've seen in the contact center space over the last decade has been the catapult for this. We just didn't have good data. We could tell you volume, we could tell you service level, those kind of metrics, but we really didn't have a good way to harness the voice of the customer. Customers rarely did surveys. When they did, they were usually really upset. So the survey data was really skewed to really angry customers. And so now that we have different technologies out there that can kind of gather this information for us, I think we're bringing a lot more to the table. I don't have a quality team that's monitoring 2% of my conversations right now, right? I have a platform that's monitoring 90+% of my conversations. That's a stark difference in data and the amount of data that's available. And I think that's really, at least that's what it has been for me. Leaders that see that we have tangible data that's not just the thought of somebody, they're perking up and paying attention.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this is a great segue into this one of the closing slides here, which is for those that want more information on Ken's story and some of the things that he's been doing with Observe. We do have a case study. Check it out on the website. And for more content from other contact center leaders, we have quite a bit now on the Observe blog. So aside from the comments that are coming in, we do have a few more questions. I know we're over though, Ken. Do you have like 5 more minutes to hang around with us?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the questions that came in earlier was, and we have sort of covered this, but are there sort of like simple, like if someone wanted to start on their journey to elevate the contact center today, tomorrow, like are there sort of simple things that they could start to do right now to kind of build that road, that staircase to where they want to go? Any sort of like habits or just like best practices that you found have helped that maybe don't require like a big investment or anything, just things that they can do today, tomorrow?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is start adding value whenever and however you can. We, as contact center leaders, I too was in the same boat at one point where I kind of just did my day to day and made sure that my business was operating the way that it should. But I didn't spend a lot of time really trying to think about how I might be able to help, my peers that are in other departments. And so I think the first thing to do is kind of take a step back and understand what might be interesting for other departments to know about the contact center. Help educate others with what it is that we're doing and why it's important to the business, and how you can become more of a strategic partner proactively. But it's all about building those relationships, and you don't have to go from not being in any strategic meetings to being in all of them, right? It's small baby steps. Maybe have a bi-weekly meeting with the marketing lead or things of that nature, and start showing some insights about what we can gather and harness. But it is, at the end of the day, if you truly want to have a seat at the table, it starts with you. Nobody owes it to you to come find what you might be able to give that is valuable. If you have some, share them with the folks in the other departments.
Awesome. Ken, thank you so much for your time. This was fantastic. Thanks to everyone else who joined. We'll be having these LinkedIn live sessions about once a month or once every few months. So, check us out. Come join anytime and ask some questions. We'll be we hear sharing best practices from these contact center leaders across the industry. So Ken, thank you again so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Take care.